is an upcoming VR game that, as you can probably already tell, looks beautiful. I recently got to play a small portion of the game, so thought I would make a video and share my thoughts. The demo that I got access to lasted about 30 minutes, and you start off in a tutorial section in a futuristic sci-fi environment. You go into a sleep pod and wake up to a view of an incredible looking pair of planets that seem to have merged together and have loads of moons surrounding it. You have a holographic image of a bald guy who wants to have a chat, then you end up crashing on the planet and you have to swim your way out. Did I mention that the game looks beautiful? You do some climbing, then you get to do what every human does when it visits a new planet and kill the wildlife. You use some squid legs to make a double-ended dildo, some more climbing, swimming, kill more alien wildlife, and eventually make it to a cool looking structure where you get a new gun to kill a new type of alien wildlife. You drive a really tall forklift to move a crate, go down a ladder, and the demo finishes. Everything feels surprisingly polished for a game that's still in development, with virtually no jank, bugs or issues. It has some of the best graphics in VR that I've seen from an indie studio. It has some really nice lighting with soft shadows. There are reflections that you can see in a droid that follows you, and you can actually see your own body. The water looks great from the surface. It has an excellent skybox with some magnificent world building. The world you're on looks believable, like it could be a real place, but it's also fantastical enough to be a real spectacle, and you often find yourself standing and looking at the vistas. Did I mention that the game looks beautiful? It just has a feel of a really big budget VR game with no weird geometry that looks out of place or low resolution textures here and there. It just feels quality and polished. Having said all that, there are some little tweaks that would really give the game even more polish and make the game feel even better. Obviously the game's still in development, so I'm not trying to diss on the game, I just want to give some constructive criticism. First, the game looks beautiful. Did I mention that? But the game seems to be using the deferred renderer in Unreal, which means it uses temporal anti-aliasing. This does add a bit of blur, especially when you're in a large open area. It's far from the worst looking game that uses TAA, but an easier way to improve this with virtually no cost to performance would be to use some sort of sharpening. Contrast Adaptive Sharpening is the best one that I've seen, which can be used in most games using Reshade. I'll put a link in the description, and you simply extract all the files into the game directory folder that has the launch exe. The game should then launch with Reshade active. If you press the end key on your keyboard, you can turn it on and off, and you'll see the difference it can make. You spend a chunk of time underwater, which I personally love. You actually swim around with gesture movement, so you push yourself through the water by mimicking swimming. I've got two problems with the underwater stuff. First, they've added some sort of distortion effect when underwater, which gave me a slight headache. It's a cool effect, but it doesn't feel great in VR. When you're swimming with your hands, you can move when you don't want to. So if you try to move your hands to grab some squid legs to make that double-ended dildo, you end up moving when you don't want to. I recommend the developers take a look at Freediver Triton Down, which is a 45-minute long experience where you have to escape from a sinking ship. The swimming works very similar, but you have to press the triggers when you want to move. So you press and hold the triggers, move your hands like you do in the breaststroke, and then release and repeat. This stops you from moving around accidentally. You can also grab the world and move yourself around as well. I would also look at the way that Freediver does underwater, as it still looks nice, but doesn't have the distortion effect like in Hubris. A couple of other little things, grabbing stuff from a distance can feel a little finicky. You have to have your hand in the perfect spot, so you end up moving your hands around trying to get the object to highlight so you can warp it to you. You can jump in the game, and a large chunk of the demo involves climbing and platforming, which feels great. But when you're pulling yourself up a ledge, your character slowly floats up and lands on top. I would prefer it if it was faster, as now it feels way too floaty. If the developers are worried about motion sickness, I would recommend having an option to snap the player to the top, like how Half-Life Alyx handles dismounting ladders. The only other thing that could use a little tweaking is the feeling of the guns. They could use a bit more kick when fired because they feel a little weak. I like the visual effects of when you splatter the little alien creatures, but a little bit more kick would go a long way. I really like the feel of the pistols in After the Fall, so maybe they can take a look at how they handle kickback. Overall, Hubris VR is a great looking game with great production values and a surprising amount of polish even at this point, and feels like a full-length single-player sci-fi adventure VR game rather than a short experience. I was already looking forward to this one, but after playing it, I'm even more excited and if you haven't already, I recommend adding it to your wishlist. It's scheduled for release at some point this year, but no firm release date. I'll leave you with some raw gameplay footage. Did I mention that the game looks beautiful?
Listen carefully. You see that recon drone over there, on top of that rock? I tried to reactivate it, but the battery is wasted. So if you can climb out of the water and put a new battery in, then I can re-enter the ship and try to connect to the drone from there. Great, you did it. My turn now. Yes, it works. I can control the drone remotely now. While you are unconscious, those two troopers already left the ship and went looking for the spaceport. I suggest you follow them. A dead trooper. Hey, that trooper's gun over there could come in handy. I guess I don't have to tell you those bugs are deadly. Let's go.